So what is the cure for hasad? I will just focus on two things, inshallah. The first is strong iman. Because as the Prophet ﷺ said, the two cannot coexist in the heart, iman and jealousy. So in order to remove hasad, you have to replace it with iman. So we need to have strong faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that includes knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides all these bounties and all these blessings. Remember I mentioned that before? That is the serious thing, calling into question the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's where we start. Start by knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided who gets what. So how can we call into question that decision, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So I will be content. I need to be satisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me. There is no need for me to be jealous of anybody. Because I'm content and satisfied. I don't want what another person has. In terms of hasad, I'm not jealous of that person. And when you see a brother has something of some benefit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him, then you should say, Ma sha'Allah, la quwwata illa billah. What Allah wills, there is no power except from Allah. And to strengthen our iman is also to know that true wealth, because the wealth of this dunya is a mirage. But 99% of the world's people are rushing after this mirage. Where is true wealth? Is true wealth in this dunya? No. True wealth is in the akhirah. So the person who has strong iman, strong faith, he knows this. He says, let them run after this dunya. Let them run after it. Let them have it. Because they are getting nothing. But instead he is preparing himself and he's working on his investment in akhirah. Because that's where he wants his wealth. The second thing that we need to do after we have strengthened our iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is we need to strengthen our love for our brothers. And this takes a lot of work. It takes effort. You can't just say, I love my brother. It's easy on the tongue, but it's very hard in reality. And that's where we need to work on it. Because hasad, jealousy, is related to hatred. So replace hatred with love. Love your brother. Love for your brother what you love for yourself, as the Prophet ﷺ said. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, you will not enter Jannah until you believe. And then the Prophet ﷺ continued and said, and you will not believe until you love one another. And then he asked his companions, should I tell you what will establish this love for you? Afshu salama baynakum. Something very small, something that we may consider insignificant, but in fact it has great value. Spreading the salam, the salutations between us and amongst us. The companions, after they heard this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they never missed an opportunity to say salam to each other. Two Sahaba, two companions who would be riding on their horse. They would come to a tree. They would depart, meet on the other side and say salam again. See, the companions, they were serious. When the Prophet ﷺ gave them something, they took it and they implemented it. We come to these lessons, we listen to all the beautiful hadith from Rasulullah ﷺ. We go home and we don't do much about it. So how do we expect our situation to change and to improve? We need to start implementing that. And these are simple things. It doesn't take much from us to say salam to your brother. And give your brother a warm handshake and a beautiful smile. Some brothers find it very hard to smile. It's not difficult to smile. And a smile is a sadaqah, it's a charity. But these small things are very important to strengthen the relationships between us. Finally, the Prophet ﷺ also gave us some protection against the hasid, the one who is jealous and practices his jealousy, because it is destructive. The first thing to do in order to be protected against the one who is jealous. Because remember, the thing that they want to do is cause you harm. Right? They start out cutting relations, backbiting you, but eventually the final step is they want to do you harm. The first thing to do is to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the protector. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all sufficient for us. فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our protector. The second thing is to have taqwa, piety and righteousness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا لَا يَضُرُّكُمْ كَيْدُهُمْ شَيْئًا. If you have sabr, if you are patient and you have taqwa, not the least harm will their cunning do to you. So it doesn't matter how much he plots to do you in, he will not be able to, because you have sabr and taqwa. So you will be protected. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us a dua that we should read every night before we go to bed. Al-Mu'awwidhatayn. We should read these two surahs every night before we go to bed. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Because in one of them, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every night when we read that surah to seek Allah's refuge from the evil of the jealous person when he envies. Sorry? Yes, all three, at least the two, all three, some say even included in that, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. So in that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a protection. But it's up to us to use it. And we should. It's very easy. But how many times do we forget? We go to bed tired. We can't even make a dua before we fall asleep. But brothers, please, small little things that we can incorporate into our lives, we need to make them habits. So before you sleep every night, read these short, very short surahs, but they are very powerful. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantees protection through them. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to clean our hearts from these destructive diseases, and especially this one of jealousy. And unfortunately, I was talking to Shaykh Yahya as he was leaving. I said salam to him. And he was commenting that this is a problem, especially amongst the leaders of our community. And perhaps some of our imams. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help them cleanse their hearts from these diseases as well. Because if we can get our imams to increase their love and respect and their cooperation amongst each other, it will go a long way to helping our community. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the destructive evil of hasad and jealousy. Jazakallahu khairan. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم.